What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to a recent video by CBC News with a really interesting title. Is Canada-US free trade dead? Welp, I hope not, but I mean, at the same time, I gotta say, it certainly seems like the United States, we're doing everything in our power to kill trade with Canada. So, as of today, there's still no trade deal that's been negotiated between the US and Canada, and I think the deadline is supposed to be August 1st, which is pretty soon. That's very soon. So that's not good, that nothing's really happening. But in this video, we're going to talk about the challenges that lie ahead for the Canada-US trade relationship, which doesn't seem to really be going anywhere or looking great at the moment. So let's take a look.
Free trade is not what most people think it is. It's not really free, and it might be about to become dramatically less free long term. Maybe for good.
Son tarif,
When Canada's Prime Minister was asked this question in French about whether a
Wow. Whoa. The Mark Carney was just straight up asked this? That was on July 15th? That's a really uncomfortable question, because it kind of forces him to be very, very realistic and really acknowledge the reality of trying to do business with the United States. And he obviously doesn't want tariffs against Canada to be part of the deal, but at the same time, like, realistically speaking, is there any scenario where Canada is going to be able to make a deal with Donald Trump that doesn't include tariffs or something? Because Trump has, up until now, made it extremely clear that's just what he wants to do. And he's only interested in America's interests. So yeah, that's a really hard question, because the answer, it's really looking like if there's going to be a deal, tariffs have to be a part of it. So maybe there's just not going to be a deal, or I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be a bad deal.
trade deal with the US without tariffs was possible. He said,
il n'y a pas beaucoup d'évidence à ce moment-ci.
there's not a lot of evidence that any country in the world can escape Trump's tariffs.
I'm a tariff person. I've always been a tariff. It's simple.
I remember this. Yeah. From the G7, where they interviewed Carney and Trump, and Trump was just like, I'm a tariff guy. I'm a tariff guy. Some people like ice cream. Some people like baked beans. I like tariffs. It's like, okay, sure.
It's easy. It's precise. And it just goes very quickly.
The concept of continental free trade has been enshrined in law for almost as long as I've been alive. And for nearly as long, it has been seen as a critical economic, but also strategic tool to grow the global economy on US-friendly terms.
Yeah, like, it's funny because in hindsight, it just feels like the Canada-US relationship, the trade relationship, used to be so great. But to be honest, I just never even thought about it. I think a lot of us never thought about how nice the trading relationship was between Canada and the US back when it was fine. Like, I certainly didn't know how it worked or any of the details, or because everything was good. Like, there was no reason to care. So yeah, it's interesting now how quickly all of that has changed, and like everybody now is like scrutinizing the relationship we have.
I'm sending to the Congress what will be one of the most historic pieces of legislation during my presidency, implementing legislation for the U.S.-Canada Free Trade Agreement.
But there are signs it could be on its way out, if it was ever more than an illusion to begin with.
What? So there is a US-Canada Free Trade Agreement currently in effect. They were even showing like old footage of when it was put into effect. And that's really interesting because I wonder what that agreement even says and how it's allowing the United States to even do what we're doing right now, because we're currently doing lots of essentially anti-free trade policies against Canada right now, right? Exceptions. Is that what it is? We're just taking advantage of the exceptions?
You know the notion of free trade is strained when Mark Carney calls it almost free trade, with a long list of exceptions.
What?
En effet, presque le libre-échange qui continue. Mais il y a des problèmes, évidemment, dans le secteur de l'acier, l'automobile, l'aluminium, le pharmaceutique et les autres bois d'œuvre et tout cela.
What?
Because
I did not know about this. Did anyone else know about this? There's this free trade agreement between Canada and the US that has lots of exceptions built into it. Like, it's not all encompassing. And why would that be? Is it because the United States and Canada, we had a good faith relationship, and neither of us have been taking advantage of the exceptions in the free trade agreement? And up until now, it's just been like based on goodwill, but apparently there's always been loopholes in this agreement, and now America is exploiting that? Is this a whole thing? I didn't know about any of this.
Because in those problem sectors he mentions, steel, cars, aluminum, free trade doesn't exist. In some cases, it hasn't for years, and the cost is only going up. In March, Donald Trump put a 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum.
Right.
In April, he put a 25% tariff on the Canadian content in cars.
Right.
And in June, he slapped an additional 25% tariff on steel and aluminum.
It's hard to keep up to date with all this stuff. Is it up to 50% on steel and aluminum? 50% tariff? Oh my God. I did not know it was like that high.
The likelihood of living with tariffs is very much a possibility. We are very much looking at a situation where we likely will have some form of tariffs. They may not be lifted, if they are at all, until next year.
And Canada has retaliated against some of these tariffs in kind, with matching percentages, with the threat of also taking tariffs on American steel and aluminum up from 25% to 50%, just like the US, if the two sides can't reach a deal to ratchet things down.
Right, which is the whole concept of a trade war. When you threaten a country with tariffs, they threaten you back, and you say, how dare you threaten me for threatening you? And it just goes on and on and on, and that's where we are right now.
And pharmaceuticals, yet another potential free trade exception. And these exceptions all stack on top of another set of broad-based tariffs Trump has threatened. Starting August 1st, 2025, we will charge Canada a tariff of 35% on Canadian products sent into the United States, separate from all sectoral tariffs.
Right. So the August 1st deadline, which is coming up, that comes with the stipulation that after that date, there will be a 35% tariff on all Canadian products. This is, I'm glad they reminded me about that, because I knew there was a deadline coming up, but this is like really, really big. If we actually get to August 1st and nothing happens, and then this is going to go into effect.
This is going to fix the trade deficit. This will go a long way to fixing the trade deficit.
So this is the state of free trade today. And think about where it might be heading. This new threat of a 35% broad tariff on Canadian goods, it actually does not apply to goods that fall under North America's current free trade agreement, which allows products through borders duty-free if they're sufficiently North American. So, for example, if you've got a shoe assembled in Canada but made entirely with Chinese rubber and Korean fabric, and let's say a big part of that shoe's value comes from overseas, that's likely not covered under this deal and would be subject to the 35% tariff.
Interesting.
At the outset of the trade war, the White House estimated most Canadian exports to the U.S., 62%, did not technically fall under the trade deal.
So like 62% of Canadian-made goods are also like using materials from other parts of the world, just like everybody does these days. Outsources materials and labor to other parts of the world, and therefore those are not sufficiently North American enough to be omitted from these tariffs, I guess. What a convoluted system we have.
In part because some companies actually preferred to pay very low duty rates rather than fill out the paperwork to prove that they're trade deal compliant. But a recent RBC report suggests as Trump began piling on tariff after tariff, almost 90% of Canadian exports seem to have entered the U.S. duty-free.
Okay.
That's a big shift in compliance. So whether by rejigging their supply chains or just deciding to fill out the paperwork, more and more trade has started to fall under the umbrella of this agreement.
So that, are they saying it falls under the agreement that they are not subject to tariffs because they are compliant with this trade agreement? This is like 90%. So like 90% of Canadian goods are not even going to be affected by the 35% tariff. Am I understanding this correctly?
Becomes very important because when the average tariff for the United States was about 2% or so, whether you're USMCA compliant or not, didn't make a huge difference when you're trading across North America. But if the tariffs go up to 10% or more, obviously you want that duty-free treatment.
And it does mean next.
Yeah, the good old days. The good old days when 2% was like, whoa, okay. 10% was like, whoa, hey. Now it's like 50%, 200%. It's just like wacko. It's just like more than anyone ever even imagined. Only Trump, to be completely honest, would even say these numbers.
Next year's renegotiation of CUSMA becomes all the more important.
And this is one great area of uncertainty when it comes to free trade in North America. CUSMA, or the USMCA, depending on where you live and what you call it, it's up for renegotiation next year. And the U.S. seems dead set on changing the terms.
Are you going to renegotiate that free trade deal, the USMCA?
Oh, I think the president is absolutely going to renegotiate USMCA.
Okay.
It makes perfect sense for the president to renegotiate it. He wants to protect American jobs. He doesn't want cars built in Canada or Mexico when they could be built in Michigan and Ohio.
There's this entire like free trade agreement between Canada and the United States is up for renegotiation next year. And we're already taking advantage of like the loopholes and exceptions or whatever in this agreement. But now in a year, it's just going to be, oh, geez, that's really bad luck to happen during Trump's term. Because obviously, like, Canada has already gotten a taste, more than a taste, of what it's like to negotiate with Donald Trump. So the fact that this whole North American trade agreement thing has to be renegotiated is probably going to be a nightmare, to be honest.
He continues to be interested in autos. So we saw the rules of origin tightened with the USMCA as opposed to NAFTA. So there could be a further tightening there or a more U.S. content requirement.
But here's the thing. The best anyone can do right now, really, is to make an educated guess as to what Trump's administration will want out of a new trade deal with Canada and Mexico. Because
isn't that wonderful? Isn't that lovely? Like, I can only here in America, like we live. He's our president, and we have accepted this level of uncertainty of what he's going to do, and it makes the American economy go up and down and up and down and in circles. And I can't even imagine being a different country like Canada who has to deal having to deal with this, like someone having to deal with the repercussions of another leader not even a leader of your country. Like, I don't know if I'm saying this very eloquently, but how annoying it must be. So annoying to be Canadian and be affected by the American president's decisions so much. Someone you didn't vote for or have any say in. That's got to be so incredibly frustrating.
Because it falls largely to Trump's discretion, which leads us to perhaps the single biggest problem in negotiating anything trade-related with the United States.
When a deal isn't a deal. This is very interesting from my point of view, because obviously I'm American, and just hearing about the frustration and annoyance that goes into dealing with the United States. Like, I am understanding the Canadian point of view now with this.
It goes without saying, Trump and his team see trade as leverage to get what they want.
Yes.
Of course, it seems fair that you should pay a tariff to do business with the greatest customer on earth, the American consumer.
Oh my God, he's laughing. He's smiling. What is that? What is this grin? He's laughing. He's laughing. Oh my God. Yeah, there's been the whole premise of all of this over the last 6 months has been, well, everybody should have to pay for the privilege, the honor of doing business with the United States. And we are so lucky. Like, the United States is so lucky that every country hasn't banded together to be like, actually, there's a lot of countries that have done this, but we're lucky it isn't worse. We're lucky that all the countries aren't like, you know what? Let's all just trade with each other and forget that the United States even exists. Let's just forget about them, because we would be completely screwed. It's fortunate that, it's been bad, and I've learned about how it's getting worse, but on the opposite side of the coin, like, I'm almost surprised it hasn't been worse for the United States, given what we've done and how many countries we've threatened with trade threats.
For Trump, tariffs are often transactional and perpetually subject to change. See an industry that needs shoring up, whether it's steel, aluminum, cars, lumber, pharmaceuticals, energy, slap a tariff on imports.
Yeah.
Feel like Canada and Mexico don't adequately police fentanyl at the U.S. border? Slap a tariff on imports.
Oh my
Want to extract
God.
more money from Indonesia? Threaten a 32% tariff, then agree to lower it to 19% after they agree to buy 50 American jets from Boeing.
It's so blah. It's so blah. So blah. Maximum blah. America, for the most part, like, has been successful because we just have been innovative. We have great companies and, hardworking people, and that has led to America's, like, success. We don't need all these, like, trade wars and stuff. Like, we're doing good. Like, why? Why all this?
Yeah, so that shows you where we're in a different world. The old world of trade agreements was you talked about each country's tariffs and bilateral trade across the border.
Yes, like, if we are going to talk about trade, you compromise. You come up with mutually beneficial trade agreements. In this new era, the Trump U.S. era, it's how can America get the greatest deal and screw you over just enough that you'll be okay with it. That's like, what?
And now what you see with the Indonesia agreement is that other issues will be brought in, defense issues, foreign policy issues. President Trump doesn't have any strong ideals or at least strong attachment to the idea of free trade.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, the idea that America is using trade to get other things, not trade related, is like also pretty disturbing.
Also have to remember that tariffs are maybe Trump's most long-standing political position. He's been talking about these things for decades. It seems to be
Has he? Fair enough. I don't. Is that true? I've never heard until like 7 months ago. I had never heard of tariffs. I've heard the word, but I've never really. No one ever talked about it. I never heard Trump say it. He was president for 4 years before this, and I never heard him talk about tariffs once. Has he really been advocating for this for decades, or why has none of it mattered till now?
something that he wanted to do long before they became something that he could use for leverage as he became president.
I have thought, this is Donald Trump's last term. And he's getting old. He's on his second term. He can't run for president again after this. This is the last time he'll be president. And so he does not have to worry about being liked. He doesn't have to worry about being reelected. Like in Canada, the prime minister has to always, do a good job and do what people like and be popular, and because they want to be reelected. In America, if you're a president and this is your second term, there's no incentive. Once it's your second term, it doesn't matter if anyone likes you, except for your reputation and your legacy, sure. But he has nothing to lose at this point. He's just going to do whatever he wants to do because he doesn't have to worry about being reelected. That's not an option.
I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. Japan is a money machine. Saudi Arabia is a money machine. Why aren't these countries, these wealthy money machines, paying us for the defense of their freedom and their nations?
This is a fundamentally different way of seeing the moving parts of a trade relationship, really, than we've seen for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Trump invented tariffs, but he certainly seems to see them more as a tool of domestic political policy than any kind of stable economic framework.
Yeah.
We all know he can say one thing one day, and he'll be out on Fox News or wherever, changing everything.
There's been things going on that we don't like, and things going on where they took advantage, and hopefully we'll be fine with Canada. I love Canada. Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state.
He loves you. He loves you. Isn't that nice? He loves you guys. Why are you upset? Why would anyone be upset with him? He loves you.
One of the problems with the Trump administration is it's a moving target in terms of trade policy. So even if USMCA is renegotiated, you want to have a solid agreement that will last at least 5 years, if not more. You don't want it to reach a whole new agreement that provides for duty-free treatment, and then a year later, the U.S. administration comes up with a new justification, whether it's fentanyl or migration, to overturn the whole agreement.
So this weaponized uncertainty.
Jeez. Weaponized uncertainty. That's a cool term. Weaponized uncertainty. Trump is the master of weaponizing uncertainty, making it so you have no idea what he's going to do. He's completely unpredictable, and he's probably using that against you. Weaponized uncertainty. That's a good one.
Has evolved as a tool of the administration, not knowing what's going to happen or the unpredictability of the administration increases their leverage.
And even Trump's own deals aren't necessarily immune to his own changing opinions.
We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals that are so bad? If I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this?
The answer, of course, is he did. CUSMA, the USMCA, that's his deal, negotiated during his first presidential term and whose terms he now believes need re-examining.
He feels that Canada...
No way. No way. That is so... It's actually not that surprising.
...has taken advantage of the agreement, misconstrued what was negotiated, and it needs to be redealt.
What this all signals is a real shift in what has been the prevailing paradigm for some 40 years, that free trade is intrinsically economically good for everybody who's a party to it.
In the 1980s...
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It definitely has shifted now to like, all right, what's best for America? What's like now? I'm not even saying that these policies are good for America, but that's like the ultimate thought process, I think, of the U.S. government now. Like, what can we exploit and do? What can we take advantage of here to just do whatever we think is best for America?
The U.S. became more enamored with free trade when it realized that free trade could also be a tool of democratic development and foreign policy influence. It was an important tool for the U.S.
Jeez. Scary. I don't like that. I don't like that. The idea of leveraging trade relationships for political purposes and agendas. That's a very slippery slope, it feels like.
Now we're moving into an era of more managed trade, industrial trade, open trade as long as it benefits my country more than it hurts it. But when the benefits are reduced, then we're out to change the rules. And Donald Trump has really disrupted the rules of global trade in significant ways, not just in the NAFTA or USMCA region, but globally.
And of course, the nuance here is that free trade was never truly free to begin with. Exceptions have always existed, whether it's supply management, dairy tariffs on the Canadian side, or punitive tariffs on softwood lumber on the American side. But Trump has really changed the rules of the game. And
yeah, like I'm sure all this political trade mumbo jumbo, I'm sure it's been like this for a long time or whatever. Well, it's been like where people try to take advantage of certain things and negotiate like in your favor. That's normal. The level that it's gotten to now is just unprecedented, though.
It's not clear to anyone whether those rules can easily be changed back.
Jeez. That was really good. This was by the CBC. Nice little segment that they did. It's cool to see like Canadians analyzing the United States. It certainly gives me a fresh perspective because, I see and hear what's going on here in the United States, and I have to listen to our media and our stuff, and so it's nice to take a look at stuff like this. And geez, so it's interesting how the tariff situation is evolving. There's like the free trade negotiation is going to have to be like renegotiated next year. I didn't know that. We got August 1st coming up very, very, very soon. Man, I honestly have no idea what's going to happen. But I do feel like I'm a lot more informed after listening to this, and I don't know if I don't know what to feel. Like, optimistic or pessimistic about where we're going. Like, I think we're just going to have to see what's happening after August 1st, or if a deal is made before then, or I think that's like number one right now. Jeez. But this was a great breakdown of like what's kind of happening. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on US-Canada trade and everything that's going on. And that'd be cool to hear about, especially from Canadians out there. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and learning about Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.